Well, good afternoon and welcome to Hiring Our Heroes virtual career community, our afternoon session. This is a great session today. It's an industry focused panel is what we're having on the federal employment, so the public sector. And we've got two fabulous organizations that I'm proud to introduce in just a second. But this virtual career community is part of a larger program that we've had at Hiring Our Heroes for over the last year or so, where we video content and we provide that to you, those that are transitioning service members, the veterans, the military spouses, and the caregivers here. This content though is recorded and it is online. So I had asked that if you're interested in any of this at the completion of this, please go to hiringourheroes.org and you can pull down this video recording. Also throughout this, just some quick housekeeping before I introduce the folks is this is a Q&A, so your questions are important to the panel and I. We ask that you ask those questions. There are two tabs that you'll see on your screen. There's a Q&A tab and a chat box. I'd ask that you type in your question in the Q&A, but if you do accidentally type it into the chat box, we will go ahead and answer it as well, and we'll just keep this rolling. So we welcome an opportunity for you to ask those questions, get them answered. But let me go ahead and introduce the panel, but I'm really excited. First of all, we've got Carl Spicer from the Federal Emergency Management Agency, otherwise known as FEMA. Carl will turn on the screen in a second. He'll introduce himself. And then we also have, though, the U.S. Customs and Border Protection. We're actually honored to have two folks here. We've got Wesley Little, the lead, for the recruiting team there. And we also have Matthew Passmore, also his assistant there. So, but I'm honored to have these three because I think we round out almost all the services, gentlemen. Okay, so we've got Carl, who served in the Army, and then he transitioned over to the Navy, so 26 years of service there. Then we've got Wesley, who served in U.S. Coast Guard. Thank you for your service there. And then we have Matt, who also served in the Army, a West Point graduate, and then went on to the Chemical Corps Ranger School, I understand. So a fellow brother in arms from the Army and Rangers. So Rangers lead the way to you, Matt. We're just really glad that you continue to serve, though. And I think that's really what's indicative about this panel here. And the point that I want to talk about is we are all still serving in some way. I tell people, gentlemen, that we just remissioned ourselves, and this time it's in a suit, if you will. But you are both with federal agencies. You have the honor to continue to serve not only your communities, but your nation, and you're doing it proudly. And I know you're anxious to talk about each of your organizations, just as I am to hear about it, and those folks to be able to ask detailed questions yet. So why don't I start off with Carl. Carl, if you can come on screen for a minute, why don't you talk to us about yourself, introduce yourself, tell us about your military background a little bit, tell us what you do at FEMA, and then why don't you take a minute and just talk about FEMA in itself.
Good afternoon. My name is Carl Spicer. I'm retired military, as Adam said. Currently a talent recruiter with FEMA. I've been there for approximately a little over a year, and I'm going to explain to you about what FEMA's mission is and how veterans actually are a credit to FEMA if we actually can land an employment contract with you. And then I'll explain some of the pitfalls. I guess that would be in the Q&A session. So, but without further ado, our FEMA's mission is to help people before, during, and after disasters. And every person inside of FEMA is an emergency manager. Doesn't matter if you're a full-time employee or a reservist. So we do have both sides, full-time employees and reservists. Our headquarters is in Washington, D.C., and in Washington, D.C., this is where the policies are set, any kind of procedures or guidance is put out. So the higher headquarters for FEMA. And then we are broken down into a regional format with 10 regions throughout the United States. Just some key areas will be like Chicago, Philadelphia, Atlanta, Georgia, Denton, Texas. I'm not going to go over all of them, but they're kind of spread geographically out and through the United States. And we also have some offices in Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands. Veterans bring a lot of value and exceptional experience to the table. Each one of you has an extreme amount of experience that's on the table, no matter whether you're in for 3 years or if you're in for 20 or 20 plus years. You easily adapt to different situations. You experience many different types of roles while you're in as you progress through the ranks. You have multiple skill sets in some situations. Foremost in everything, you're very dependable. You show up to work on time, you work in a team environment, and you're used to a structured chain of command. So you're going to find that in the federal government, there is a hierarchy and a structural chain of command. It doesn't quite work the same as it does in the military, but it is definitely there, and veterans bring that value to us. And you're also mission focused. So some of why you're a fantastic fit, it's an easy transition from the military to FEMA. Service carries over. If you don't have 20 years, you can buy back time and add to your federal experience and retirement time. Some of the common skills that are needed are planning, operations, logistics is a big one, human resources, and the management side of the house. And most of our jobs are posted on usajobs.gov. So I'll leave it at that for right now, and questions once this is all done. There's a lot more to FEMA. However, I know you want to hear more about all the other here and how to actually get in. So.
Well, I'm excited that you're excited. So good job, Carl. Thank you very much. I'll turn it over to Wes for an introduction.
Hey, everybody. Wes Little. So I'm the lead National Recruitment Program Manager for U.S. Customs and Border Protection, Office of Information and Technology. Like a lot of you, I come from an operational background in the Coast Guard. Some of you may or may not remember back in the earlier times of the 2000s when they were doing involuntary recalls, but I was in that group of individuals that was a reserve that was involuntary recalled to support Operation Iraqi Freedom. I took that on, ended up going to SMU, getting operational, loved it, loved every minute of it. But, as all things must come to an end, so too did that. I got out, went into Joint Task Force for JFHQ, which is Joint Force Headquarters out in DC, went to DoD civilian side, government side, and was the breaching engineer and sniper team leader for 7 years. Then I joined CBP, but I joined as law enforcement because I wanted to maintain that operational stability. I liked being out in the field. But family life, kids, I had a daughter, decided to go back and put on the suit, the lead. I'm sorry, I forget your name right now, sir. Mr. Rook.
It's Adam, it's fine.
So decided to put a suit on, and I haven't looked back since. My point is that all of you guys are going to make a determination at one point in time to hang up the gun belt and to put on the nice shoes and slacks. And so we're here to help you do that transition. CBP specifically, I love the agency. If you're looking for a place that you can really transition from the military side into that paramilitary mindset, this was the easiest transition by far that I've ever had. I even going from military to DoD, I ran into more red tape when it came to certain SOPs and policies than I have at CBP. It's a young agency. It's founded in 2003. So we're talking about being plank owners, for those of you who know what that term is, about an agency where you're really still able to make that definitive difference, that definitive change. Working for OIT, large mission. Everybody has a key role, and the mission is phenomenal. I'll get more into that when we start discussing about our actual operations and when Q&As. But overall, OIT, the CBP's Office of OIT, or Office of Information Technology, focuses on everything that comes with CBP mission, both national and international. CBP is the largest law enforcement organization in the United States. We have over 76,000 people in this component of DHS alone. And OIT, no matter whether you're working for Office of Intel, law enforcement, Border Patrol, it doesn't matter. OIT is always going to be play an integral role in that mission, which means that everybody in OIT is getting a good mission understanding of every position within the entire component. We have IT specialists that have to go out in the field and wear bulletproof vests with Border Patrol agents when they're in the austere environments on the northern and southern border. We've got individuals that are doing cybersecurity in DC. We're attached to different JTFs all around the United States. We're working within consortiums of other federal agencies, working with private and public partners to increase the safety and security of the nation. I mean, we could talk all day about the OIT mission. But it's an excellent opportunity, and veterans, speaking as a veteran, represent a unique candidate for the office because you're able to rise to the occasion. Asymmetric challenges we face every day, emergent threats, emergent technologies, and it's great to have an education. There are people who can sniff a book and tell you exactly what it says. But the problem is are they able to take action? Is that actionable intel that they have? And a lot of times what you run into is that you have somebody with great knowledge, but without the ability to execute. And veterans have a proven history of being able to execute their mission. So I can train you on what needs to get done and know that when I say, here's what right looks like, here's your left and right limits, now we need to go get it done. We know you're going to be able to get it done. And that's what we're looking for in candidates, the ability to execute the mission. So I'm very excited to speak with you guys, very excited to answer questions. And with that, I'm going to turn over to my counterpart, Matthew Passmore, who will discuss about himself. Yep.
Hello there, my name is Matthew Passmore. As Adam mentioned earlier, I'm prior service myself. Got out back in 2016. I went to the military academy, grown up in a large military family. My brother and I, we went to the dark side, as we like to say. So my father was a sergeant major, my mother was a first sergeant. So you can imagine living up in that kind of household with the disciplinary and what have you, but ended up went off going to the military academy with my brother. They call that going to the dark side. So we went the officer route. My branch actually ended up choosing me. That was the chemical branch. Fun fact, I actually had to take chemistry 2 times while at the academy, but I got a good solid B my second go around. The chemical corps chose me, but as we all know, there's a lot of versatility with service members. I always wanted to be an infantryman myself. And even though I was chemical corps, I still was able to find opportunities to pursue those infantry kind of things, such as air assault, airborne, and eventually Ranger School, which was just an incredible blessing. My military experience was fantastic. Getting positioned as a chemical officer was a beautiful experience with me, as I got to serve in a variety of different roles. So in saying that, first and foremost, if I have not mentioned already, I appreciate everyone's service, everyone that's attending here today. As mentioned, as everyone here has mentioned, we are all prior service, and at one point in time, believe it or not, we have been in the same shoes that you have been in. So all those anxieties and what have you that you're feeling right now, how I see it right now with this session today, the main goal is to kind of ease some of those anxieties and kind of give you some good solid information, some tools and some resources to help you be successful with whichever chapter you plan on penning in your next life, I guess you could say, your next career. I will say that Customs and Border Protection that I now work for is a beautiful organization. There's a lot of perks, which we'll be getting into a little bit more later today. But I'll go ahead and keep it at that point, because I know there's going to be a lot more questions that come in this way. But that's a little bit about me, and I look forward to hearing from you.
Great. Thank you all 3 of you all for your service. I'm going to jump right into it too. There's a couple questions. I'm going to hold it off for just a second. I'll get to them because I want to tee up the first one. First of all, both of your organizations are absolutely incredible, and they're vital right now, especially as you look around the world, especially here in the US with the pandemic, FEMA and the vaccinations and the Customs and Border Protection, with obviously what you see in the news and the border. So thank you very much. Why don't you quickly talk about, and I'll start with FEMA there, your agency, those high demand needs that you're looking for, right? And maybe what are some of the top roles, Carl? And maybe you said a little bit before where they might be located, but why don't you talk about the high demand needs, and then we'll jump into the questions, and then I'll jump over to Wesley as well.
Yes, sir. The high demand needs are going to be, so I have to break FEMA down into 2 different roles. We have full-time positions, and then we have reservist positions. So the majority of the full-time positions you're going to find, I'm going to give you some, I'll call them branches for lack of better terms, but the logistics branch, the IT branch, HR, and engineering are the 4 main categories that FEMA for mostly. One would think we hire doctors and things like that. We actually don't. That type of stuff gets contracted out, especially with COVID going on right now. And we do a lot of local hires for part-time intermittent roles in specific areas for like COVID or a natural disaster that breaks out. So the 4 branches that I just told you were the ones that are mainly hired for the full-time positions. And then it branches from there. But when you're searching USA jobs, they're going to change daily. So I know CBP has an extreme amount of positions. We only have like 17,000 people inside of FEMA. So, and probably 25% of those are full-time. So the other 75% are going to be the reservist side of the house. And then we also have some that are called IM Core, and they're also called IMAT, which are, they're full-time, they're part-time positions, but they're actually full-time. So it's kind of like a temporary reservist in the military where you're, or a TAR, which there's no other Navy in here, but it's active reserve. So, or like the active Army National Guard, same thing. Those are called IM Core and IMAT, which are, I'll go further in depth when we get more questions as far as like that goes. So your GS, there's 2 types of full-time positions for FEMA. You have the regular GS route, which is your government service agent, GS 1 through 15. Obviously, then you go SES from there, which is a lot harder to get into. And then you have what they call IM Core. I am an IM Core employee. So that stands for Cadre On-Call Response Recovery Employee. And that is funded by a totally different budget from the GS side of the house, which is basically FEMA's unlimited checkbook to hire folks on a full-time capacity and the reservist side. The pay and the benefits are exactly the same for a core employee. You can retire from the core side of the house. You can get the FERS is the same, which is your retirement system, and you still are allowed to do the TSP. Vacation time is the same. So it's pretty much the same thing, just paid from a different pot of money. So the same thing for the IM Core, which is called incident management. It's the same thing. They get benefits as well. And then you have the IMAT, which is a incident management action team. So those are the first boots on the ground at all the sites. So I left out the most important category that we hire, which is emergency management specialists. So those are our 5 main categories of what we're looking for. And again, most of them are advertised on USA Jobs. Occasionally, well, I'll say occasionally, we're always continuously collecting resumes from veterans, what we call hand select or name select for positions that are not announced yet. So once they're announced, they have to go through the federal format from and the OPM guidelines that are given out from USA Jobs. So those are the 5 main categories.
Good. Thanks a lot, Carl. We'll come back to the name select in a minute. How about Wes and Matthew? Talk a little bit about your organization.
All right. Yeah. So CBP entire, and I'm gonna apologize at the beginning. I was just under general anesthesia yesterday, had surgery, but I showed up for you guys today because I was a vet. I know what it's like to be there trying to transition, and it's definitely important. We show up for one another. Those in the military, you guys know we always show up for one another. So here I am. So if I get a little tongue-tied, please forgive me.
Okay.
That being said, CBP as a whole, we have a broad spectrum of professional roles. We hire all the time. You're going to see generally two different types of postings on USA Jobs. And I want you to pay attention because you have 2 routes you can go when it comes to getting into our organization. You could go the USA Jobs route, and you could go the non-competitive eligibility route, which is where veterans, service members, military spouses, that's where you fall into through that NCE route. You can use both. I highly recommend you try to exploit the NCE route if possible. That being said, we have our law enforcement and our what we call professional services. Under the law enforcement branch, we have air marine operations, border patrol agents, U.S. Customs and Border Protection officers, and agriculture specialists. So just a brief background on those law enforcement positions. AMO does all of our air, sea, and land. They are the guys that are out there, got women and men agents who are out there flying either the UAVs, flying the props, flying the jets. They're the ones out there on the ribs. They're out there on the Boston Whalers. They're out there in the ocean doing their thing. We have the divers program within AMO. And then, of course, we have our guys that are doing patrols. The AMO also does land patrols by the ports and whatnot. There's a huge mission involved with that. If any of you have experience in flight crew, with AMO, the requirements to get into AMO are a little bit more stringent than you would find in the other law enforcement realms within CBP, because you have to have certain pilot licenses, seat time, and whatnot. But if you have any of those, you're highly encouraged to apply. Great, great one law enforcement component of CBP, great law enforcement component. If you don't necessarily have that type of experience, but you want to get into law enforcement, again, remember, and I'm a big proponent of pushing vets to get additional education. If you want to fly, I highly recommend you take on another law enforcement position, use your post 9/11 GI Bill to go to flight school, because then you can transfer to AMO. It's super easy. I got a couple buddies that did that. That being said, Border Patrol agents. Now, a lot of people see what they see on TV with Border Patrol. I can tell you, being down at the border, what you see on TV isn't necessarily indicative of the actual job. Within Border Patrol, there is a lot of, it's the closest thing that you will get to being in the military without being in the military. And I say that in that you show up for mount, you do your PCCs and PCIs. So for those of you who were in the combat realms, you do your pre-combat checks and pre-combat inspections, making sure that your gear is good. You get on your ATV, you get in your SUV, you get on your horse, or you put on your boondockers, boots, and you get to your area. And you're out there securing the nation, whatever that may mean. You may have a day where you see nothing. There's times where there's complete downtimes and times of sheer terror, right? You get to see nothing, then you might run into issues where people are trying to sabotage our signals out there, trying to sabotage sensors, cartels bringing people through, bringing drugs through, bringing counterfeit merchandise, which is not something you would generally think about, but fake Gucci and Coach purses from south or north that are trying to come into the United States, that your significant other may go and spend $500 on when it only costs $20 to make. Somebody's gonna be mad. If you work hard for your $500, you don't want to pay $500 for a $20 purse. Well, CBP does make sure that doesn't happen. So that's what you're going to be doing as Border Patrol. You do everything except the ports of entry. Everything, all of that land border that's open, not the port of entry. Customs and Border Protection officers, they're more of it's law enforcement. Your 6C coverage, you get law enforcement coverage with all of our law enforcement positions within CBP. Customs and Border Protection does a lot of the same stuff as Border Patrol, but where they differ is it's a lot of white collar crime. So you would be thinking the difference between the FBI and Secret Service, okay? So whereas FBI does a lot of like the day in, knocking down door, going to catch this, serving this warrant on this guy, Secret Service does the money laundering. They do the presidential protection. CBP officers at the ports of entry, they're the ones who are determining asylum cases, which are individuals trying to come in who say they want to defect to the United States. They have information on a possible enemy state. They have information they want to trade with us. So you have asylum cases, or they're seeking refuge from their country. You have refugee cases. Let's say you're from Ethiopia, and you're trying to come in because your country is attacking you, or you feel that you're being discriminated against, and you're seeking refuge in our country. Then you have individuals that are coming on as visitors, dignitaries. All of that comes through the ports of entry. So I have done the border side as a CBPO, and I've done the port of entry side. Now I can tell you the port of entry side is very different. I've been literally in rooms. I've been in one of my first cases. I was in a room with $10 million, me and one other guy having to count out $10 million that somebody was bringing into the country. Legitimate money, but what we have to do is we're applying tariffs, taxes, all of that stuff. So we're ensuring that the United States, that us as taxpayers are enforcing our rules when it comes to trade. And part of that is taking a little bit off the top. Uncle Sam always gets his piece, and that there's no change for that with people coming into the United States. So an interesting fact. Yeah.
Let's wrap this up so we get to some questions.
Oh,
okay.
Too easy. All right. So that's the law enforcement side. The professional side, we have legal, we have laboratory sciences, we have Office of Information Technology. So if you're not wanting to do law enforcement, but you're wanting to do something within the organization, there's a lot of opportunities that are in a suit and tie that you can do. And we kind of focus on both. So I'm happy to get to questions. Yeah, like I say, I talk all day about the agency.
Yeah,
I'm happy to get to questions. but there's plenty of opportunity here. We're hiring all the time through competitive USA Jobs and not competitive, more headhunting, more targeted by name selections. So we
Well,
offer
let
both.
me just tell you, we selected the three right folks for this panel here because you're both very excited about it, and I appreciate, and I know that those people listening do. Let me jump on to some questions because they'll get pissed at us if we don't answer them. Okay, so Alan asked the first one concerning both agencies. So we'll go to Carl first here. Are there any positions for someone who has a private sector background in quality assurance and operational internal audit with a mission of improving efficiency? This person has 14 years of private sector after a 7-year stint in the U.S. Military Police Corps. Carl, what do you think?
You want me to jump in while we fix his issue?
Go right ahead. No, he's off. Go ahead, Carl. You're off mute.
I just have a question. Are those folks allowed to talk, or are they strictly limited to Q&A via typeset?
I'm sorry. No, they're not talking. No, I'm sorry. They're limited. I read the question.
The reason I asked is I would preface that with some other questions because it's a general statement and so I'll just speak from FEMA side of the house. So you're saying you have a background in quality assurance and operational internal audit. So when you say operational internal audit, what are you auditing on the operational side of the house is my question, because we don't really have QA. We have QA on the reservist side of the house, but not really so much for the full-time side. But we do have operational support on the full-time side of the house, but I'm not sure if it covers the audits because I'm not really sure what they're wanting to audit. So I would say I see the military police in there. So we do have law enforcement. It's a small section, but we do have law enforcement. I'll leave it at that for right now because they might follow up with another question on that.
Great, thanks, Carl. Wes?
Yeah, so for internal audit, whether it be IT audit or fiscal audit, we do have both. Obviously, we deal with a lot of trade, international trade. So anything that comes into the United States, conveyances, vehicles, anything that comes in to be sold or exported has to go through CBP first. So we could be auditing tariffs and taxes from other countries, or we could be doing internal audits when it comes to our contracts. We have a lot of contracts. We're a big organization. So when it comes to trying to figure out where money is going to go because every year is different when it comes to budget, we do have business, like for us, we call it our PSB, our business our public business partnership, that helps us kind of navigate our how we allocate funds both internally and externally for support of our third-party stakeholders and support of internal operations. So we do have different auditing positions. All of our offices within each of our components has different auditing positions that are available.
Thanks. How about Carl? And did you want to touch on that? Otherwise, we'll jump on to James's question to you.
No, we're similar in that nature. It's just hard to pinpoint exactly what it's called. But you'd have, like I said, for any of those types of jobs, other than name selecting, we'll go out and headhunt, just like Wesley had said earlier. At the same token, I would say constantly search USA Jobs and there's a way to go in USA Jobs and set reminders for yourself, or for them to send you reminders or notices on when something is posted. So if you want key particular requirements in there, just put those in USA Jobs and you'll get notices from that when those jobs are posted. I'll just leave it at that for right now. So
back at you, Carl. James is asking, I know Denton is FEMA Region 6 headquarters, but are there any FEMA opportunities in San Antonio?
FEMA opportunities in San Antonio for full-time would be a nil. The headquarters is in Denton. If you wanted to try to support Denton, you could do it in the reservist role. The reservists inside of FEMA can live anywhere. So in the reservist capacity, you're I'll call it nationally deployable for any kind of natural disaster, and they're part-time intermittent employees. So they can live anywhere and you get paid while you're actually activated. So as far as full-time roles, I do not believe there's any in San Antonio, but the majority of them are in Denton, Texas.
Yeah, I'm going to come right back at you to knock out some of these questions because they're rolling in, gentlemen. All right. Jeff's asking to FEMA, he applied yesterday for a GS position in Washington, D.C. Carl, he's looking for a good point of contact to follow up on this. Would you be a good point of contact? And are you all three to give out your email so they can connect with you, please?
you can put me down as a good point of contact. I can try for you, but when it goes to USA Jobs, those are limited to the actual people who advertise the position. And at the bottom of that announcement that you applied to, there's an actual point of contact and an email for them. That's who you would want to talk to about your actual application for that particular job. But you can, I'll put my email in the chat. You can feel free to send me resumes, what have you, and I will vet them for you. I will give advice on what I think you should, add or not add. And for the resume part of it, for the federal positions, doesn't really matter what agency. Always make sure your resume addresses the specialized experience, because if it does not address the specialized experience, you will likely get thrown in a digital trash can as far as the resume goes.
Thanks, Wesley. And can we do the same with you? We'll put your email and contact info for you and Matt in the chat box, okay?
Yep. So our email is going to be that OIT recruitment mailbox, which is manned, but we have a mission support specialist that watches it all the time. And also specifically for us, I would recommend two things when you're trying to apply to CBP. If you have applied to a position as a veteran, and you have questions, you're more than welcome to reach out to us. But in addition to that, if you're looking for employment, not just with our organizations, but any federal organization, you need to go to opm.gov, look up selective placement coordinator, and there's going to be a specific email address to a person, right? So our email address will come to us, but I can't speak for other agencies. That person is the selective placement coordinator, which can help route you to the appropriate hiring manager, help you fast track your application, help you utilize non-competitive eligibility that you qualify for. That's where I would start if you're looking for an agency, because then you can just send your resume and say, hey, I'm interested in any vacancies that you have, and be considered for those vacancies. It creates a more direct line of comm versus going through the USA Jobs route.
Good. Hey, Carl, Scott's asking, does FEMA have any environmental engineering positions with an Army background in construction or project management?
FEMA does actually have environmental engineers. They also have environmental science backgrounds. Those are going to fall into a category or a cadre called environmental historic preservation. So they're continually looking for those type of backgrounds, floodplain management, things of that nature. Not sure how often they're advertised, but I would love to have your resume to turn it into FEMA and vet through the actual headquarters to see what we have available.
Great. And I've got one for both of you guys. Back to Wesley and Matt first. Are there any positions or opportunities in Charlotte, North Carolina region, Wesley?
For Charlotte, North Carolina. So we do have some positions in North Carolina. Charlotte wouldn't be one of them. So vacancies come available all the time is what I will say. I highly encourage any vet that's looking to transition into CBP or any service member who's looking for a different career, to not limit yourself to a specific duty location. Oftentimes there's internal opportunities to transfer that may not be available to the public. So if you're seeing a position that's generally close, if you want to go back to your family, but you find a position that's 4 or 5 hour drive away, don't be afraid to take that position. Take that leap, because it's likely that a position either will become available, or you might be on some sort of telework agreement where you're able to travel back and forth more often than you think. Again, that's not offered to you as a new candidate. That's something you get once you're an employee. So don't limit yourself just based on duty location. Always be open to opportunity, because there's a lot more opportunities available once you're in the organization.
Yeah, good. How about I'm going to go to one of my questions real quick. It's a little bit broader in scope. It might help the folks out. It's about the life cycle of the USA Jobs applicant. And I think you're all three pretty familiar with that, because that's the process you use. How about telling the audience here what they can expect, and maybe what are some of the best practices of that? And then the tail end of that, I'll follow it up with direct hire applicants, if that's okay. And if you don't mind, I'll start with Wes real quick, and then ask Carl to chime in, please.
So USA Jobs process, Bluff, you're going to apply, you submit your resume. System does a check to make sure all required admin docs are in there. That's automated. If they're not, it kicks it back. If they are, you move forward. Once you've moved forward, that goes through the certification process, checks your resume, looks for all the information. If you have to do a qualifying test, if you have to do a test, or if you have to answer the additional questionnaire, it's going to look at the questionnaire. I will repeat, do not answer the questionnaire falsely, answer the questionnaire based on what's true and accurate to your actual conditions of employment, what you've experienced, because that question will come up later on in the hiring review. That's how they will draft review questions for you when you're actually at your interview. So if you get asked a question, if you ran 1,000 man organization, you say yes, and it turns out you just ran a shop of 10 people, well, that you're going to have a problem at the interview. So you're going to do the certification list. Certification list gets sent to the hiring manager. Hiring manager pulls the individuals that they are from top of the list down, pulls the individuals they're going to want to interview. They just say, I'm going to interview 20 people, 20 candidates from this list, the first 20. Those first 20 candidates are notified that they have an interview. They get invited to the interview. That interview is conducted. Either they make a selection from that interview or they don't. If they don't make a selection from that interview, the interview process will start with the next 20 candidates. If they do make an interview or do make a selection from that interview, everybody else will be notified they were referred, but not among the best qualified. Selection process is then complete. It goes back for audit to make sure that the information is correct, contact references, do all of that. You receive a tentative select offer. After that tentative select offer is when you begin your pre-hiring process, SF-86, medical background, if you have to do a physical, if you're doing law enforcement, polygraph if you're doing law enforcement. And then after you've completed those, you'll receive the green check mark of life, and then you receive your final offer of employment. Law enforcement side, from cradle to grave, you're talking 10 months. Civilian side or professional services side, from cradle to grave, you're talking anywhere from three to 12 months, depending upon the level of clearance that you have to obtain. For those of you who are coming with a TS, there's some reciprocity. There are two systems. So, DOD uses the JPAS system and civilian side uses the EQIP system. There's not reciprocity generally between the two. So you'll still have to fill out the SF-86 no matter your level of clearance, but the agency itself may have a memorandum, or the leader of that agency, Secretary of Homeland Security, Commissioner of CBP, may authorize reciprocity depending upon your level. So generally for law enforcement side, if you're coming in with a TS-SCI, there's generally a reciprocity. It's not a guarantee, but generally there's a reciprocity. But generally, like I said, for professional and non-professional, you're looking at anywhere from 3 to 12 months, I would say. So that's why it's good to start probably before you get out.
No, very detailed and thorough, and I appreciate it. And Carl, please add on to that based on your years of experience as well, please.
It's pretty hard to add on to. He pretty much held that from the beginning to the end. It's about the same time frame for FEMA, maybe a little bit less because we don't have a lot of TS opportunities that are inside of FEMA. Most of ours are personal trust background checks. So I'd say probably in the 3 to 6 month category. There are going to be times when you're out there applying. My advice to you is going to be to apply, because you're going to have times where you're frustrated, wondering why you're not getting information back. You're not getting referred to the hiring manager. And a lot of that has to do with the resume and what Wesley had alluded to on the questions. So there's two things that can stop you from getting, I won't say they're not the only things, but there's two things that can prevent you from getting referred. One is not meeting the specialized experience that's on the job announcement. So make sure that you actually have the experience in your background. Don't be deterred by, for lack of better terms, there's GS1. Well, you don't really see those anymore, but in the GS level, don't be deterred by it. Try to evaluate yourself based on the grade level of the position and that you've met that experience, whatever's announced in the job announcement. Also, there's a list of questions that are at the bottom of it that you can actually search through to gauge yourself on whether you're qualified for the position or not. So if you meet those two criteria, you should get something back saying you're qualified, either qualified, well qualified, or amongst the best. Once you meet one of those categories and you're referred, now it's up to the hiring manager to make that decision on how many he wants to actually interview, and then you may or may not hear back from that point if you were referred, whether you got an interview or not. You're supposed to, but it doesn't always happen that way. So again, my advice is to apply, because you're going to run into obstacles. You're going to run into frustrations with it. And it's just the nature of the beast. I am subject to that particular application process and feeling like I'm the most qualified person in the world when I'm going and applying and I'm not getting anything back. And it all had to do with the resume. And then as Wesley alluded to the questions, you can delete yourself on the questions too. So you might get a resume that's qualified, then you go answer the questions. And if you answer some of the questions on there and they're none, you might delete yourself from getting an interview. However, don't lie about it because it's going to come up in the interview more than likely if you do get referred. So you're kind of wasting your own time. So those are the suggestions that I would make. And Wesley hit all of them steps right as they go.
Great job. So Carl, right back at you. Let's talk that's submitting a resume, obviously. But what about the direct hire process? Do both of your agencies have the direct hire process? That's virtually bypassing USA Jobs. And real briefly, how does that work, Carl?
Basically how that works is you can take some special hiring authorities and you can take the resume and directly can carry it to a hiring manager. Obviously get a cert done on them as well to make sure they're qualified for the position. But we can do name select basically on certain positions that we know that are coming available, and we can vet them and just take them directly to the hiring manager. So each agency does it a little bit different. So when I was active duty military and we hired folks, we could do the same thing. So, and it's pretty much the same thing inside of FEMA. However, as long as it's non-competitive, it's real easy to do. And especially with the core program that we have, if it's not announced, we can just hand carry it to a hiring manager. They don't really have to do a cert. They can just say they want to interview this person and take it right over to Fed HR and start a case.
Okay, thanks. Good. Anything to add to that from the Customs Border Protection?
Yeah, so our direct hire process is actually that's where a lot of our bread and butter is with Matt and I. We focus a lot on, we try to bring in the vets as much as we can. So if you are interested in direct hire positions, you simply send your resume, your DD-214, your civil service preference letter if you have 30% or more disability, if you're a military spouse, sending the orders, the PCS orders with your husband or your wife's PCS orders with your name on there. And we will go out and find positions. We send that resume out to all of our 20 something divisions and directorates, and we say, hey, this individual wants to do this kind of job. We looked at their experience. We think that they can qualify for these series: 0343 management program analyst, an IT specialist, law enforcement. Give the resume a look and let us know if you're interested in talking to them. And we just routinely do that. We send out weekly updates to these hiring managers. We make the resumes available in repositories. We do whatever we can to make sure that we can get these candidates hired. And CBP, we utilize both operations, USA Jobs and direct hire. But if we can find a direct hire candidate to fill a position, the amount of money, which is fiscal responsibility, right? It's fiscally responsible for us to utilize the OPM regulations and guidance we've been given to hire as quickly as we can. If we can do that, do the direct hire route, that's exactly what we're going to do.
This is great news. Let me ask you though, for everyone listening, they might be thinking the same thing I am. Do you recommend that they go through your websites, your career, pages, potentially find a job position that they think suits them, that they're qualified for, and send you directly their resume with that job position? Is that the best practice for them to do? Or maybe a couple options, I guess?
So a couple options. If you see a posting on USA Jobs that you're interested in, you can apply to it. And then you can also send us your resume and say, hey, I'm interested in being not competitively considered for this position. That's a route. If you go through our careers page, we're currently building up an OIT careers page, but they are listed, but we're building a separate page for it. If you find a career that you're interested in pursuing, and you say, hey, look, I'd like to pursue this career in CBP. If it's not within OIT, we will push your information forward to the representative for that division or director of that organization. If it's for OIT, our email is manned every day, every business day.
Right.
We have a mission support specialist that watches the emails, and one of their primary roles is to mark the resumes, upload the resumes, and distribute the resumes. We have a lot of positions that we need to hire for consistently. So we're always trying to utilize this direct hire program. So there's two options right there that you can utilize. And you send us a resume anytime you decide, hey, I'm just interested in finding out what opportunities. More than happy to answer questions.
Thanks. Carl, you got the same?
Yes, sir, about the same. And then I'm going to type in our FEMA career email as well. It's a general email box that goes to five different recruiters. So, but we're a little bit different than, well, CVP is a lot bigger. So we have one section here or one region or one department. whereas we're going to cover all of them for you for FEMA. So we're not quite as big as CBP. So
I'm going to jump over to a question, Tony. I think he's asked a couple of times. I'll make sure. Tony's asking about specific jobs for both of your organizations with electrical engineers or electronic technicians. Do you have any positions to fill those? Wes?
Matt, do you want to take this?
Yes, we do. I thought I answered that question already inside the chat. I've been trying to go through and answer a few of them. I did just want to go ahead and caveat on some of that, the non-competitive eligibility piece. I know, we talked about the veteran piece, but really also we look for military spouses as well. So military spouses, they also have non-competitive eligibility as well. We do a lot of events with them. I know the size of our organization was mentioned. We are very large. So one of the pros on like military spouses, for instance, joining an agency as large as ours is that, it's understood that with the military lifestyle, you're not always going to stay in one place for a long amount of time. It's very rare for you to go ahead and stay in one spot in your military career, and that's understood. Should you go ahead and get moved somewhere CONUS or perhaps even OCONUS in some specific areas, the odds of us having a position out there is very likely. So being able to go ahead and work maybe some sort of lateral transfer or something along those lines, it's definitely a feasible option. Just something important to note.
Good. And someone's asking for the emails. I saw that you all put those in there just as well. How about Crystal's asking custom border patrol? There it is. I'm sorry. It's moving. I'm sorry. Is the, I guess, FLETC training length abbreviated at all for prior military? For example, positions of customs officers, I'm sorry.
No, it is not. So I've been to FLETC multiple times with different agencies, and it doesn't matter what background you're coming from. Like, I went to sniper school for 9 weeks, and I still had to go to the basic firearms course at FLETC. You would think they would abbreviate it, but no, there's a specific, like anything else, especially the law enforcement side, it's paramilitary. You go to one basic, you got to go to the other basic, doesn't matter. And so it's a learning curve, right? Everybody does something a little bit different. FLETC is a great program. I highly, that being said, I highly encourage anyone to participate in the full. Don't let that dissuade you. Participate in the full thing, because there's specific rules of engagement, use of force, policies with deploying your weapon, how to carry your weapon, and your credentials. There's so many things that go into those classes. So you're not going to be wasting your time. You're going to definitely walk away with some knowledge that you didn't have before. But no, it's not reduced for prior service or prior experience.
Mike was asking, how far out from our separation date should people apply for positions at both organizations?
So for CBP, I highly recommend. For CBP, I highly recommend that you start applying at least 9 months out. And I say 9 months out. So especially if you're going to be using the direct hire route, that means, contact us. Say, hey, look, I'm looking, even if it's just say I'm looking for a POC at Border Patrol or for a CBPO, we'll put you in the right direction. But apply 9 months out, because by the time you get to your ETS date, you should be that 6 months, 180 days. You're already prepping to leave. You want to give us enough time. So the idea would be that you're transitioning out and coming to work, not that you're transitioning out and have this large gap of time where you're still looking for employment. So like I said, 9 months out, 9 months to a year would be perfect, because then you could literally go Friday, you're out of the uniform. Monday, you're reporting for duty.
Carl, anything?
I would say in the same category, 9 months out. I know that FEMA is entertaining the Skill Bridge program as well, and they don't fall under the same requirements as DoD with 180 days out where you can't apply. So I'd say 9 months out, and that also gives you the opportunity to put your feet in the water, start doing the resume, start trying to get referred for the for the positions and actually going through some interviews. So hopefully you'll strike it the first time. But I'm telling you, it's going to take a little bit of time. So I would definitely agree with the 9-month period, maybe even a little farther out if you have the time and to get everything dressed so you can motor on later on to get the positions you're looking for.
How about let's just say they either get hired by you or these folks are still pursuing careers in the government. What are some typical career progression pathways in the GS system? So what are some proactive ways a new hire may advance their career over time within the agency or even cross agency? Carl, you want to start with you?
Progression for inside, I'll be straight and honest with you. FEMA is a top heavy organization. So the majority of our positions are GS 11 and above. So the progression, we're kind of like a stepping stone for, I don't know how to describe it. You're not going to see a lot of GS 7 and below or GS 7 to 9 positions in FEMA. They're mostly going to be 11, 12 or higher. And we're kind of top heavy. So I really don't have an answer for the progression part of it, but the majority of the folks that come into FEMA actually are here for a year or two, and then they're progressing on to another position inside of FEMA for a higher level, or they're jumping to another agency for that promotion for a 13, 14, or 15, depending on what it is.
That's well answered, by the way. So Wesley or Matt, how about for your agency, please?
Matt, you want to take this?
I was a little preoccupied typing in some answers to some of the questions. If you want to take this one, sorry, I missed this question.
I got it. No problem. All right, so career progression for us, we have quite a few 7s, 9s, 11s, 12s, and 13s. We actually have a gambit of the entire GS system within our roles. So if you're coming in with very little experience, we have student positions. We have the veteran. We have an entire veteran internship role where if you want to learn how to do a job and you're a veteran, you get in. And Matt actually runs that program for my team, and so we can get you in on a temporary role as a vet to convert to a full-time position. But generally, if you come in, let's say you come in as a 7, it usually will be a 7 FPL 11, which is you come in as a grade 7, and then you get an automatic promotion to 9 the next year and an automatic promotion to 11 the following year. And then we have a lot of 11 FPL 13s, which means you come in as an 11, you get a promotion to 12, and a 13 the second sequential year. And of course, amongst all those grades, we have the regular step increases. GS, you start as a GS1. The next year, if you start as a GS7 step 1, you're going to get at least $1,000 promotion. The next year, you'll be GS7 step 2. That goes all the way up to step 10. So there's different steps within each grade, but generally our grades aren't just going to be static to 1. Generally, we have FPL PDs, which means they have like 2 or 3 grades. You get hired for 1 grade, but within 2 years, you're promoted to the top 3rd grade. Generally, when we have our static grade only PDs, they're usually a GS11 or GS12. So that's usually how it works for us.
Great.
Yep.
Carl?
Oh, I thought I just answered that one.
Yeah, I'm sorry. So let me move on to another question surrounding about compensation. Thanks. How about a little bit of comparison from their time in the military to now the time in the GS system? Pay and benefits are important to the servicemen and women out there listening. Can you talk a little bit about the compensation scale and how that might work, Carl?
The compensation scale based off the GS, it's going to vary by location. So what you might see advertised on USA Jobs might be a GS9 with a low pay band, but in DC, pay band's a lot higher. So that's not what you'll start out at. But in the middle of the Midwest, it may be a lot lower. So it's kind of hard to pinpoint that one. But the GS 7 to 9 program is geared, or I'm sorry, 9 to 11 is geared for, on education alone, it has nothing to do with your experience, it's geared toward it to a master's degree. So that's what OPM guidelines say. However, if you have a bunch of experience, that stuff kind of gets thrown out the window and you now may qualify for a GS 9 to 11 position. But I live near the Richmond area, and a GS 9 here may be in the $50,000 range, but 2 hours up the road in DC, it may be around 70,000. So it just depends. So anytime you are interested in a GS position and you're thinking about applying for a GS9, and it happens to be in, let's just say San Antonio, Texas, because someone brought that up earlier, you can actually go on the internet and actually find out what the actual pay band is for that based off geographic location, because they all have geographic locality pay. So I really don't know how to answer that question because it's all free knowledge on the internet about what GS 1 through 15 pay. So hope that helped answer the question.
You did good. Thanks. Carl, Wesley, anything to add to that?
So I'll go ahead and I'll jump in and add a little piece of that. Again, just to kind of caveat up what Carl was saying, it is based off locality. So you have your base rate and there's that locality adjustment as well. Just to kind of talk a little bit of piece on compensation on our side as well, to kind of add a little bit more. I know, just that call for service and everything is what kind of draws most of us to military service. But I know one of the great things, what keeps us in there as well, is that sense of security. In the military, I know you all have BAH, you have the family care facilities on site, MWR, FMWR, things along those lines and what have you. With us, with CBP, you're not going to get a monthly housing allowance or what have you. To go ahead and find a place. The GS pay grade, if you're a GS9 in the DC area with CBP, you're going to be getting paid the same as a GS9 in the DC area with FEMA. I will say with CBP, there's some additional perks to certain agencies that you go to. I know, for instance, in the military, they have tuition assistance. We have a tuition assistance program as well. There's family care leave that's implemented within our organization as well. So should you get pregnant or you have your wife that gets pregnant, there's up to 16 weeks of leave that could be utilized for that. There's also a child subsidy care program as well. So, and that's based off your pay. How much you get paid, but CBP provides a little extra money to go ahead and help out with the childcare, which childcare in this area, I don't know if you all have kiddos. I have a kiddo. I know Wesley has a kiddo as well. It's kind of expensive and it certainly helps out. And there's a lot more other benefits and perks with the organization. If you're a lifelong learner like myself, I live by the 3 Ls. There's wonderful access to, we have learning management system. There's some PMP programs, Skillsoft software, access to audio books that are out there that you can go ahead and have access to as well. And there's plenty of opportunities to go into some of those big name schools that you were able to access in the military. For instance, the War College, DHS employees, to include CBP, we frequently go ahead and send our employees out to train at those events as well. So there's a lot of training opportunities that are with us as well.
Super info, Matt. I appreciate it very much. We're running short on time. We're probably right at our window. I'm going to take the liberty of a couple more minutes to wrap this up, and I'm going to give each of you an opportunity. I think we've done a great job answering all the questions pretty much. So, and if we didn't get to it, I apologize. I think though this panel in some fashion throughout the discussion today. So, but how about words of advice? Carl, I'll start with you. Any final words of advice for those that are getting ready to transition, those military spouses that we've got listening there, and then perhaps those veterans as well, as they get ready to consider FEMA as their next career opportunity?
My words of advice are kind of what I preach all the time on a lot of different job fairs is apply, and make sure that your resume or your qualifications address the specialized experience in the announcements. Those are the key things that are going to help you be qualified for the position and actually make it through a cert to get referred for to a hiring manager. So as far as the spouses and go, spousal employment and the losing my train of thought here. That's one of the categories that everyone's looking for to help hire spouses. So it's one of your hiring authorities to help you out. So make sure that you, as I think Wesley alluded to it earlier, having your PCS orders and things like that, make sure you have everything in hand, in a row to give to the recruiters. Also for the agencies that you're looking for, it doesn't have to be FEMA. It can be any agency out there. So all the stuff that I just said is for any federal agency. It doesn't really matter. FEMA would love to have you, but first and foremost, we want you guys to find gainful employment. And if it happens in the federal sector, it doesn't matter if it's in FEMA or anybody else. Just make sure you're doing the right things and applying those particular avenues to your resume and to actually assisting you in getting a referred. So, but again, it doesn't matter if it's FEMA. We'd love to have you. However, we want you to find gainful employment. And FEMA is not a fit for everybody because we are kind of location based. Unfortunately, we don't have jobs in every part of the United States. We are regionally located, and if you are retiring and you just want something part-time, consider FEMA because it is a good, rewarding experience to help people and be in a reserve format and still have a gainful employment somewhere else and go deploy to natural disaster areas to help individuals. So, but that advice is apply, and address that specialized experience.
Thanks, Carl, very much. How about Wesley?
Yeah, so I would say, the military, you learn a lot, right? You can develop a great career in the military. But one of the training scars that you get in the military is that you get used to having your NCOs and your COs tell you how things should be done. There's a lot of straight road that as long as you follow these steps, you're going to get where you want to get. You're going to get where you should be. You're transitioning out of the military. You're looking for a career in the federal sector. This is big boy time. This is big boy and big girl time. These are careers. This is adulting now. There's nobody to tell you what right looks like. You make or break your career on your own. So one of the things I would say is, don't be afraid to take the risks, right? You're stepping out. You can be unsure. I know I was there, right? I was like, oh, maybe I don't really want to. I'm not really sure if I want to go into the civilian sector now. I'm used to being here. Complacency kills. So if you're not feeling challenged, if you're looking for another career, if you're looking to do something to challenge yourself, don't be afraid to take the risk. Step out. If you're looking for a specific duty location, you can't find it, and you want to get into that federal career, find somewhere close. There's always opportunities to move. Always opportunities. What you're trying to get is your foot in the door. Once you got your foot in the door, you can make your own way. You got to get your foot in the door. When it comes to resumes, don't use acronyms. No one knows at the hiring center what those acronyms mean except for you and your element. So don't say a bunch of things because they won't be counted for you. They're going to skip over them. If it doesn't make sense, it doesn't make sense. So spell it out and then make it as civilian as possible as you can, but make sure that I can understand it when I'm reading your resume. When you're looking at benefits for the federal service, the benefits aren't the same as the military. And the reason the benefits aren't the same is, again, this is an actual civilian career. These are positions that you can go within DHS. Any employee within DHS has the ability to become the next Secretary of Homeland Security. That's our top level. That's where we go. We have hundreds of 14s and 15s and SESs. So if you're enlisted, as far as you can go is E9, and there's a 1. Outside of that, you got E8. We can go all the way up. So there's so much more benefit that is intrinsic. So you have your tangible and your intangible value. There's so much intangible value to a federal career that you can't put on paper. You just have to experience it. So take the risk, apply, reach out to us if you have any questions.
Thanks. Matt, last words. Got to be brief, though, please.
Okay, I'll try to be brief. Okay. I think this goes without saying, and with everyone that's on the line, as you know, inside the warrior ethos, it's you never quit, right? And I'd say never quit. It can get somewhat frustrating, at times, trying to go ahead and just understand all the minutia involved just in the beginning before you can even put in that resume, that solid resume. And I can let you know one of the hurdles that I personally went through when I was trying to get my foot in the door with the GS system and what have you. That resume was in fact the first hurdle. It took me a while. And again, this was about like 20 plus initial resumes to kind of capture that piece and go, you know what, I need to really be specific, I guess. I need to tailor it to each position. So if I were to, and usually I could find something in positions that I served at, where looking at the position description or what have you, there would be a piece or a nugget within that position description that I can go ahead and kind of exponentiate or talk about within a past experience that I've done. Once I got that resume tailored down, well, shoot, that next hurdle was actually the interview process too. And kind of prepping and making sure that I was good to go. But the advice would be not to quit, cast a wide net, and to do it boldly. I mean, go bold. I mean, don't shortchange yourselves. Shoot, I mean, you all have a vast of experience in everything, and you're essentially a hot commodity. There's a lot of us out there that understand the values that come from the military community, and it's exactly why we go ahead and we participate in events like this to go ahead and make sure we can drive in some stellar talent into our organization. So definitely don't quit, don't shortchange yourself, and I left our email address inside the comments, but oytrecruitment@cbp.dh.gov. If we didn't answer your questions, please shoot us an email.
Well, I let this go over a little bit today, and they're still sticking around because of the tremendous panel that we had. I am grateful to each one of you for your service. I'm grateful to each one of you for what you're trying to do to help hire our transitioning service members, the military spouses, the veterans, and the caregivers. And thank you all very much for coming today. It was a wealth of knowledge, and we're grateful to you. For all of those of you listening, as indicated, their emails were posted numerous times. Please reach out to them as well. If we have a virtual career fair this Thursday, the 25th at 1 to 3 p.m. It is a Hiring Our Heroes virtual career fair. I ask, if you have not registered yet, please go to hiringourheroes.org. That is our website. Go to the events scheduling tab and scroll on down to the public sector event on the 25th at 1 p.m. and please register for that. There are over 15 plus employers in there, over 1,000 plus job opportunities in there. So this could be your opportunity to connect with one of these organizations or many others and put your name out there and get the career that you're looking for. So please go ahead to our hiringourheroes.org. Remember, this was recorded as well. You can go to our career community and you can pull that down as well. Again, I'm going to end the session here, but I'm going to say thank you all very much. You know, your organizations are fabulous. They're built around leaders of character, and you're looking for leaders of character. Well, you came to the right place when you came to look for military service members, their military spouses, or those veterans. And if you go to their websites and you look at the values under both organizations, you'll see it's surrounded by integrity, respect, compassion, leadership, all those values that we had in the military. So I think they're two tremendous fits for you. Two organizations looking to hire you. Thank you all very much for being here today, and thanks again to the panel. Have a great day. This ends our session.